Right.
See, stay up here for a sec. Stay up here for a sec. Now, gentlemen, sometimes there are people who you see and that you speak to and that speak to you, and you just go on about your business, and sometimes you don't realize who's speaking to you and what they have done. This brother right here, this brother has been a foundation in this community. And that foundation, gentlemen, is all around trying to do all he can for our people, okay? That's what he has been focused on. So when this man stands in front of you and he is, he gets you all going and gets you all fired up, gentlemen, understand that you are looking at somebody who has moved mountains in this community for our people. So give it up, please, for Rondo Cooper. Good, bro.
Appreciate you, man. All right, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So here's what I want you to do. Just for these next few minutes, I need you to focus on what we're talking about today. What I don't need is for us to lose focus, okay? If you have something to write on or write with, that would be good. If you don't care to take notes, that's on you. That's up to you. But what you're going to see today are some things that it's one thing for me to sit here and talk to you and share with you about different things. It's another thing for what you take away from it. And so you're going to see a lot of things on the screen, things you can write down, things you may want to take notes on, things that you need to, that I would encourage you to think about after you leave here sometime. Because what I'm going to share with you today has to do with today and has to do with really the rest of your life. I was in my years of being in high school and college, my high school and grade school years, gentlemen, we grew up in a household. I was the youngest of 5. And our household that we grew up in on the side of a small town in Texas, brothers, I'm telling you, when I found out just how much, sometimes people find out how much you really have. We found out how much we really didn't have, because we didn't have much. And when you find that out and it's that surprise to you, for me, that's the way it was. It was a shock to me. And the reason it was a shock to me, because then I go to school and went to college and saw what all these other people, all these other students had, all my ball players, my teammates and everything, how they came into college with their car and their this and this and this and this. And I thought, my goodness, didn't know that side of the world lived. And so what I had determined, gentlemen, is that I don't care what background I came from. I don't care what happened as I was growing up. I can still do everything that I want to do, what I dream I can do to make a dream a reality. For me, growing up as an 8, 10, 15-year-old, to think that one day I would be a college president, that was far from my mind at that point, because I was listening to what everybody else told me about what I was supposed to be or what I couldn't be. I was listening to that. And if I didn't listen, if I would have stopped listening early on, I think I would have even had a quicker route to where I am now. But the problem was I listened too early, and I believed too early. And so that's why me sharing with you today, gentlemen, is so important to me. I hope it's going to be important to you, but it's important to me because I want to speak into your life at this point, something that nobody spoke into my life at this point. Now, if you listen, I think you may get something from it. Here's how I want to start out. So this is all about building your kingdom. So let's take a test first, because you're not in school, so you came to a college, so that's just what we do. Take a look at that picture. That's an interesting drawing. Got a man standing on top of the world, talks about make poverty history, get rid of poverty, people walking by. But if you really look at what the picture is from the side, you find out what you thought looked one way looks totally different, just from another perspective. You get another look at it. If you take a different angle, you see something very different. What about that picture? Old girl kicked back in the swimming pool. He says, I'm going to join. But if you look at it from a different angle, Wasn't quite what you thought it was it? Interesting how a different perspective changes the whole story, isn't it? Oh, yeah, you want to see it again, huh? You want to say, now, wait a minute, let's take a look at that one more time. What'll give you a good hint is that look at how large the people are on the back side. That kind of gives you a hint as to what that really looks like. You always have to be careful about how you look at things. You always have to be careful. Now, not just talking about a picture on a sidewalk, but talking about you and your future and what your future can be. You got to look at it from a different perspective than what some people would try to help you to see. So when we talk about this idea of building your kingdom, we're going to talk about 4 things today, gentlemen. The first thing we're going to talk about is what it means to have a plan. And not just have a plan, but have one now. Now have a plan. 2, we're going to talk about what does the word intentionality mean? What does it mean to be intentional? Intentional about what you're going to do. 3, a saying I love to say that above reproach is the approach. I'll talk to you about what that means. And then 4, if you're a king, act like it and surround yourself with royalty. Because that's what this whole thing is about. We're kings. So if we're going to be a king, we're going to act like a king should act, and I'm going to surround myself with royalty. I'm going to surround myself with those who view themselves and act in that way as well. So let's dive in. The first one, have a plan and have it right now. So what do we mean by that? First thing, you got to determine what your plan is. Now, here's what I mean. When I talk to people about, and they ask me, Dr. Pink, how'd you? The thing about it is that I can't go throughout I decided, I can't go out throughout my career just drifting. You'll see something in a second that says don't drift. I have to figure out what that plan is and have a plan. All right, so I have brothers and sisters that tell me when I ask them, what's your plan? What do you want to do? That idea that I'm asking you is that what do you say, here's where I'm going. I don't want to just live and just let anything happen to me and just kind of get blown by the wind. Okay, now I'm over here. No. What's your plan? One of the things that we are so unexpected of, people don't expect it from us, that we would actually have this plan that says, here is where I'm going. Here's what I want to do. And there's a plan that talks about what is going to not only get me where I need to professionally, but personally. What's your plan? If I were to ask you, and I ask people this all the time, I don't care what age you are, I always ask them, so where's all this going? You're here at college, you're here at GRCC, what are you going to do with that? And I ask you guys the same thing. You're in high school, you think you have this idea. Wait a minute, let me ask first. How many of you men say, one day I'm going to go to college? Raise your hand. I love to see that. Thank you. Because my next question to you that I need you to think about would be, so what? If you're going to go to college, what are you going to do with that? I'm going to go to college to be so here's what mine was. I said, I'm going to be a college basketball coach. That's what I wanted to be. Played ball in college. During my college basketball years, I said, I want to coach college ball one day, and I want to coach D1 one day. That's what my plan was. So that's what the goal, and I started thinking, so how am I going to get there? What are the steps I need to go through to get there? But realistic steps, because I did not have the plan that said, first day out of college, I'm going to be coaching at Michigan State or at Kentucky or something. That wasn't the plan, because I knew that was unrealistic. Got to be realistic with the plan. So I had it all laid out as to what that plan was going to be. Here's what I have to do in order to one day find myself coaching D1 basketball. Laid it out for myself. But the second point to that is very important. You can't be afraid to change the plan. Because here's what happened with me. I said, one day I'm going to coach college basketball. I'm probably going to have to get into coaching at the high school level, maybe junior high. I got to work my way into it. First day out of my college degree, I was head coach at a 2-year school in Nebraska. I was already a head coach. All of a sudden now it's time to get real, because now it's on me to direct these people in basketball. So my plan had to change a little bit, just because I said, all right, it kind of sped up on me a little bit, and now it's a little accelerated. So now what am I going to do with that? But the idea, gentlemen, is have a plan, not being afraid to change the plan. Because sometimes you get to a certain point and you realize, woo, no, this is not what I want to do. Because sometimes you find out about that particular thing and you find out it just doesn't fit you, or it's not what you thought it was. For me, as wanting to be a college president, that one started about 15 years ago, gentlemen. 15 years ago is where I said, that's where I want to go now, because I had reached that, where I wanted to be. I actually was at the D1 level and having a good time. But then I said, now it's time to go for the next plan. That next plan was to one day be a college president, about 15 years ago. What the plan was there was to get as close as I could to being a president without actually being a president. So what does that mean? How many vice president positions? Had a couple of because I needed to be as close to the presidency without being a president. So I could keep asking myself, do you still want to do that, Pink? Because one of the worst things you can do, one of the worst things you can do, is find yourself working in a place and doing something that you really don't like doing. You ever done that one before? Have a job that you're going, I hate doing this. I don't want to do that. Sometimes you have to do that in order to get to the next one, but that's not where I want to end up. So what I did is I said, I got to get as close to it without being it so I can live as close to it and know what it looks like. So when I was a vice president back in Oklahoma, my office was about 20 feet away from the president's office. I would go down there to her office 2, 3, 4 times a day. And all I wanted to do was talk to her about what was going on at the college, but I also wanted to ask her things like, so what are you doing tonight? Because I needed to know what her life looked like in the office and outside the office. What dinner do you have to go to tonight? What program do you have to, where do you have to speak at this week? I needed to know, because I needed to know what her life was like so that I could keep asking myself, Pink, is that still what you want to do? Or do you need to change your plan? So the first thing, gentlemen, in building this kingdom, have a plan for what that kingdom's going to look like. Second thing, what is intentionality? Somebody help me out there. Help me out. What is intentionality? What do you think that is? Doing it on purpose. Actually having something that I say, this is what I need to do. That it's not going to happen just by accident that I'm going to get there, wherever there is. That I am intentional about what I do. I am intentional about what I say. I am intentional about who I do that with. That I see people and I say, that's who I need to get to know. So when I'm at something like this, before I made it to this level, I was at maybe a conference or something like that. If there was somebody that I saw that they were doing what I want to do one day, my intentionality said, I'm going to go and spend time. I'm going to shake hands and say, hey, how you doing? I'm Bill Pink. Who are you? And get to know that person a little bit. I am going to be intentional with getting to know those people. Gentlemen, when you look at who is in this building today, the men who are here, who are sitting around this room, who are outside that door, who are here to help you, your intentionality says, who do I need to get to know a little bit better? Whose email address do I need to get so I can just keep in contact with? So I can say, hey, I just want to know, what is this? I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about going over here. What do you think? What do you think? That is what intentionality is all about. And as I said earlier, don't drift. Don't just drift. Don't just say, well, I don't really have much of a plan. I'm just going to go through high school. Go to college. I'm just going to go through. Don't just drift around, gentlemen. Because when you and I, as black men, just drift without any intentionality, without any saying, here's where I'm going and here's how I'm going to get there, then people look and they say, okay, that's just what I expect. No. We change that narrative. If that's where we've been, we change that narrative. Some of you gentlemen who are in athletics, you're in sports, you play ball, you play baseball, basketball, football, whatever. If you aren't intentional about what you do, I'm assuming your coach demands intentionality from you. I'm assuming your coach says, if we're going to go against this team, here's how our plan is that we'll defeat that team. It's intentionality. It is, here's how we put the game plan together, not only to play them, but to win. So if that's what it takes to win a basketball game, a football game, or whatever it is, then how does that play over into your life? That's the advantage of athletics. That's the advantage. Third thing, above reproach is the approach. Now, this one gets a little interesting, gentlemen. Live so that this is what someone told me years ago. Live so that no one can say anything bad about you. All right. Live so that no one can say anything bad about you. Here's what I mean about above reproach. So as a black man, and as blessed as God has been with me and my family to be blessed to be in the position I am in, what that one means to me is that as a black man, as the first African-American president at this institution, there is a level that I feel that I have to reach that probably is a bit higher than what someone else may have to reach. Why do you think that's so? Because as a black man, as a college president, I'm being looked at a little bit. Okay, I'll just say it. I'm being looked at quite a bit. Because the question becomes, so what's he going to do? Is he capable of it? Can he lead that institution? It's so nice and cool that he's the first one, but now what? And so if those who have been in this position before me, if this is where they had to reach, gentlemen, I got to get up here. I need to reach up here, mainly because I need to make sure that I am reaching as high as possible in terms of being that idea of above reproach. But that idea also says that in the way you carry yourself and the way you conduct yourself, that you do that in a way that nobody can say anything bad about you. They can't say, well, you know, Pink did, or you know, No, I got to live my life up here. Not only in how I conduct my life as the president here, but every time I step off this campus, because people are still watching. And some people will never say anything to you, gentlemen. They're watching, but they may never say anything directly to you, but they are still watching. And so they are paying attention to how you live your life, whether you are a college president or a high school student. The other thing is you need to take qualifications off the table. Here's what I mean by that. That's above reproach thing. How do you take qualifications off the table? Here's what I'm saying. One of the things about it is that if you're going to be a person that you say, here's where I want to be, this is what I want to do, then you have to make sure you do all you can to make sure your qualifications are such. Because if you're not qualified, now they have a reason not to hire you. Because the easy excuse to not hire you and the easy excuse not to hire me would be, well, you don't have the degree. Well, you don't have the background. Well, you don't. Take the qualifications off the table by attaining those things. There was no way I would be the college president at GRCC without a doctorate degree. So I got a doctorate degree. There was no way I was going to reach a college presidency without getting that. Okay, cool. I got it. Now why are you not going to hire me? Take qualifications off the table by being qualified. Get the education that you need. Get the training and background you need so that if someone is going to say, well, let's say, no, I have that. Why else will you not hire me? I've got that education. Well, I have the background. Why else will you not hire me? Take qualifications off the table. And then the final thing, if you're a king, you act like it. And you make sure that you surround yourself with royalty. One of the things about this idea of being a king is that a king and royalty carries themselves a different way than everybody else does. Royalty realizes who their maker is and who empowers them to be who they are. If you are indeed royalty, if you are claiming, and this is what this shirt says, that you are a king, then that means that we as kings have to act like kings, and we need to surround ourselves with kings. It means that when people see us, they look at us and they say, wow, there's something about him. There's something about him. What is it? It's the way he carries himself. It's what he says. It's how he talks to people. It's how he engages with people. That you stand up for a second, bro. That when you're talking to someone, that you shake their hand and you shake it with a firm, thank you for that, bro. You shake it with a firm handshake. You look him in the eye and say, hey, I'm Bill Pink. Who are you? TJ, it's good to meet you. Because what this does for people is that it shows them that I'm a king. And I don't care what skin color you are, I can shake your hand because I'm a king. It doesn't matter what you're about, I'm a king. And so you not only act as one, but you surround yourself with others who have that same thing in mind. Thank you, bro. Because if I am going to act as royalty, I have to surround myself with other men who get that and who live that out as well. Because that is how I keep myself in check in that regard. So that's it. Who you hanging with? What's the word about you? And that idea of resilience. What is resilience? That means that I bounce back every time I'm knocked down, bro. It means every time someone wants to knock me down, I bounce back. And that's what it means to be a king. So I'm getting a signal. Let me wrap up real quick. Going over those four things once again. That's what they are. Let me end with this. This is a picture of back in the 1950s. This is in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm going to end with this and let you guys go. You'll have some debrief time after this. This is in Little Rock, Arkansas, back in 1957. This is at Little Rock Central High School. And what happened in 1957 at Little Rock Central was an all-white high school. And what happened back in 1957 is that there were 9 black students that said, we want to go to Central because of the level of education that was there. They said that's where we need to go in order to achieve what we want to achieve. So desegregation had happened. So at that point, that the federal government said, black students can go to white schools, it's all good. You can all integrate. It was desegregation. So 9 black students said, we're going to go to Little Rock Central High School. What happened when they got there that first day? They were met with a governor and his decree that said, no, those black kids aren't going to go to Central. And the governor actually sent National Guard troops to block them from going to school that day. The next day, the President of the United States said, that's not going to happen. The President said, National Guard, you go home. And the President actually sent the U.S. Army to Central High School to escort those 9 black kids to high school that day and for the rest of that school year. And so here you are at high school, bruh. You are being escorted by Army troops so that you can get your education. And one lady who I had the honor of listening to several years ago, Carlotta Walls Lanier, she was one of the 9. And as I listened to her speak one day about 5-6 years ago, she was a speaker at a conference I was honored to be a part of. She said, here's what it was like. She said, I'm being escorted by Army troops. And she said, I remember that as I walked down the hall between classes, there was this one little girl, one white girl would walk right behind me. And every step I took, she would step on my heel. Kept stepping on my heels everywhere I went. These troops didn't see it. She was stepping on my heels. That was her way of letting me know, you're not welcome here. But what happened is that Carlotta kept going to school. And those 9 kept going to school. As a matter of fact, another gentleman, Terrence Roberts, who was one of the 9, now Dr. Terrence Roberts, he was one of those 9, and he said the same thing. They wanted to make sure that you knew that you weren't welcome, that they said, from a resilience standpoint, what I tell you, resilience, we're not backing down. At the end of that year, and of the 9, most of them graduated from Little Rock Central High School. But when I heard Carlotta Walls Lanier speak a few years ago, let me leave you with what she said. She was asked after that long presentation she made to us, and after all these questions, one of the last questions asked was, what was the hardest thing for you during those years? Because I know it had to be hard. It had to be hard to have someone want you to be gone and not want, as a matter of fact, flat out hate the fact that you want a good education. They said, what was the hardest thing? Here's what she said. She said the hardest thing was the fact of not knowing as you walked down the hallway who was for you and who was against you. She said, because as I walk down the hall, I see people, and she said it was hard to know, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? Can I depend on you? She said that was the hardest thing, was to not know who was real and who was fake. Brothers, the idea of being a king says that you let each and every man sitting next to you know that you are with them, that you are a king and you want to lift them up in that same way. You let your brothers know. And when you see your brothers starting to hesitate, when you see your brother starting to fall a little bit, when you see your brother start to fail, you grab him and you say, I got you. Come on, let's go. Because every once in a while, you got to help me out, I got to help you out. You let the brother know, I'm with you. Because if that's not the case, then who can I depend on? If I can't depend on you, who can I depend on? Thank you, brothers.